Well, howdy, partners. Welcome to a hootin', shootin', hullabalootin' episode of Cartoon Clearance. We are your hosts,
I am Titaniumly Daniel.
and I'm Badlands Meg, the kid. Today we are going to get some ramble chaps on to discuss the elusive piece of animation known as Party Wagon, and I am so sorry for all of your ears.
No, I'm not sorry. But Titaniumly Dan is going to take over now and give a little background
You go for it.
to what Meg said, the Party Wagon. And if none of you know what Party Wagon is, you're not alone. I personally didn't know what Party Wagon was because I saw it way back when on Cartoon Network. It was a made-for-television movie directed by Craig Bartlett, who is a personal hero of mine as he is the creator of my beloved Hey Arnold. After a dispute with Nickelodeon over the consideration of a second Hey Arnold movie that he wanted to produce, Bartlett decided to jump ships and move from Nickelodeon to Cartoon Network, where he brought the script of Party Wagon to life. You could break down this movie into 3 traditional episodes of an animated TV show, and it was intended to be a pilot for a series also called Party Wagon. So this was like the intro, and then if it got good ratings, okay, then you'll get a series. The show, actually, if you like voice actors and behind the scenes stuff like me, you can notice a lot of similarities between Hey Arnold and Party Wagon. They bring together a lot of alums. For example, Tuck Tucker co-directs, Jim Lang does the music, and they also use very much of the same voice actors that were used on Hey Arnold, including Maurice LaMarche, Dan Castellaneta, Pamela Hayden, and you have a little bit of newcomers with the now famous Sean Astin, aka Samoy Scamchi.
Oh,
That's my Hobbit accent. We're going from terrible Western accents to terrible Shire accents. I apologize, any Shirelings out there.
who did Sean Astin play?
He played Randall P. McDuff, our
Really?
protagonist.
I never even noticed.
And the now teen heartthrob Josh Hutcherson. Maybe I'll try that name one more time, but you know what? No, I'm not. Josh Hutcherson, who I guess was
I guess
the
you
biggest
did
claim
in
to
the end.
fame. Josh Hutcherson from the Hornger Garms. I think that's what he's in.
I have
don't know,
no
he plays
idea.
He plays pita bread. Anyway, the movie was released on February 27th, 2004. Until today, though, the series has floated around in obscurity. No surprise, it did not get its TV series pitch in, I guess, as was planned. So, Meg, would you like to give a little bit of summary of the Party Wagon?
The Party Wagon. Well, if our initial horrible southern accents didn't give it away, then this is set in the Old West.
Ye olden times.
Oh yes, in the era of the Oregon Trail. So you have the young protagonist, Randall P. McDuff, who gets shotgunned out of his wedding in a surprising turn of events. He finds himself wandering, destitute, alone, and so the obvious decision in a situation like that is to head west on the Oregon Trail. He is too poor to pay for passage on the nice wagon train and too raggedy to qualify for the snooty wagon master standards anyway, so he joins a ragtag group of other rejects, including the rootin' tootin' sharpshooter Sublimity Jill, the ladies' man of few words Romeo Jones, you have a blacksmith Lewis Clark Jefferson, the filthy old wagon driver known as Bumpy
Snitz.
and Bumpy's volatile daughter Ornery Sue.
You mean beautiful daughter.
Beautiful, my apologies. There was another member to this group initially known as Three-Eyed Jack, but he kind of went over a waterfall. Before his untimely demise, though, he divulged the secret of his diamond mine, El Glitterado, out in Oregon. And so each adventurer ends up holding a torn piece of the map, and so they set their differences aside, all for the sake of riches. And along their journey, they pick up a pair of orphans known as Billy and Toady. They gain a reputation with the wagon train for how wild and undisciplined they are, and for throwing their great late-night shindigs, which drives the wagon master rather up the wall. However, Three-Eyed Jack might not be as dead as they thought, and he don't take too kindly to folks knowing about his secret diamond mine. Daniel, what did you think of this movie?
I quite liked Party Wagon for reasons unknown, right? I mean, no. I really liked Party Wagon. It had a lot of things that really gelled with my sense of humor, things I like from animated TV shows. Its humor wasn't dumb, or trying to play down to an audience.
Oh yeah, no, it was really witty.
Craig Bartlett is an alum of Nickelodeon from its golden age, as some would call it now. So one of the big appeals back then was having a show that was meant for kids, but that parents could watch too without blowing their brains out. And it definitely carries over, I think, into Party Wagon, where you could watch Party Wagon as a kid and go, oh, haha, you know, this is pretty funny. But as an adult, you listen to certain jokes, or even just if you are just able to pay attention well, you go, okay, that alone is funny. Like, at one point, they go to Seattle, and Randall goes, this place is Nirvana. And, like, that's, like, a nice little reference that a kid probably wouldn't get. I mean, unless they were a huge Nirvana fan. But it was really funny, I thought. It was a nice, innocent little romp through the Old West. I was also really appreciative that it wasn't overly glorifying anything or overly putting down anything. It played things just right, I think, as far as every character, scene, setting, actions go.
Yeah, you know, it was funny because I don't really know what I was expecting when you said, all right, next week we're watching Party Wagon, but it definitely wasn't this. Like, I hear the term Party Wagon, and I'm not sure why, but I automatically think of like,
guys.
exactly, I think of bro college guys, like, romping,
everybody at the Party Wagon,
having like drunken midnight romps. And you know, if it was on Cartoon Network, obviously it wasn't going to be that. But I wasn't expecting something about the Old West. I wasn't expecting this very colorful cast of characters. And I started watching the movie, and for the first 5 minutes, my predominant emotion was, what?
Yeah, the pacing was a little off in the beginning, I think.
Yeah, it kind of just throws you into the thick of things, and so much is happening within a very short time span. And I think the good thing that they decided to do was they framed it in terms of the protagonist writing letters to his Aunt Cordelia. So,
my dearest Aunt Cordelia.
I think that was a good choice because it kind of gives you that excuse of, okay, this introduction is a summary of how he's come to be where he is now. I do think it was a bit jumbled, and I think part of that was because it just completely defied my expectations, so I had that additional layer of, what am I watching?
Yeah.
But once all of the characters were introduced, I actually really liked it.
Yeah.
I was really surprised at how much I liked it. I actually laughed out loud watching this, which is pretty tough to make me do when I'm watching something by myself. But I got a few giggles out of it. And I really liked that this humor was based off of the individual weirdnesses of each character. Everyone was so bizarre in their own special way. And
absolutely, that's what made it so great.
Exactly, like, they did these really good characters without making them into stereotypes. And I really appreciated that. So, like, you had Sublimity Jill, who's like this super
Annie Oakley,
efficient, like sharpshooter.
She's like a typical like ranch girl. She's like I'm just one of the guys, kind of like
and
slap you on the back, laugh in your face,
yeah,
spit
definitely.
tobacco.
And the protagonist, who's a horny 16-year-old, a randy 16-year-old, I should say.
There you go.
You know,
keep coming,
he gets a crush on her right away, and she's just like, kid, don't even
He's like,
bother.
how old are you? He's like 18, 17 and a half. Okay, 16. And then later on in the film, she's talking to him. She's like, you're 16. You don't know what love is. You're only 16. He's like, well, how old are you? And she's like, you don't want to know. I'm 27. He's like, that what? 27? And he's like, I mean, how young?
And then you had Ornery Sue, who is this slim girl with a unibrow who likes to play the organ that they cart around in the back of their wagon and provide plenty of background music. And she only speaks in Shakespearean English. She hisses at people, and like whenever she does speak, it's like, back thy foul heathen type of Shakespearean insults. She was so funny. And then you see this character development between her and Randy over the course of the movie, and just everyone was so weird and fun in their own way.
Yeah, and another thing that I really liked was that each person sort of had their own bit to contribute to the rest of the party, and it
Mhm.
makes sense because the show is called Party Wagon, and it's like party because they go crazy, but they also have like they are a group of people trying to work together for a similar goal. So
Yes.
it makes sense that these people would actually try to be working together. So they're not all just buffoons who are like, whatever, I hate you. But like Lewis Clark Jefferson, just he happens to be a blacksmith. Okay, that's cool. Romeo Jones uses his devilish good looks to get in the favor with the wagon master's wife, and
And
like
daughters.
Bumpy is inept, and most of it, like the things he does for the party, are like it's like you just have the wagon. That's
Yeah.
why we have you. And like they make fun of his coffee the whole time, and then at one point he snaps. He's like, "I don't want to make coffee for you anymore. You always are criticizing my coffee, and you always criticize my wagon. It's my wagon." And it's like, oh my gosh. But the characters are a lot of fun to watch, and though they're not breaking barriers by being like silly or having a little bit more to them than just being comical, some of them really stuck with me. For example, and I'm really interested to hear what anyone else has to say about this, but one character that stuck out to me was Lewis Clark Jefferson, who is, I'm going to list off all of his qualities, a good-natured man, pretty cool-tempered, he's a blacksmith. At one point he tries to sell snake oil, but he's like kind of like the cool, level-headed member of the party.
Yeah.
But he also happens to be a black man.
Yeah.
And not once throughout this whole movie do they ever bring up, "Oh, you're black?" Or like, he doesn't have a backstory of like, "I'm an escaped slave," or even, "Oh, I'm a free man. My dad was blah blah blah." They don't give him that sort of backstory, and instead they just make it normal that he is on this journey with everyone. And I like history and I like historical context and everything. So most of the times I like it when certain things are put in like reference. Like you shouldn't ever mention this without probably considering this or this. But I actually really enjoyed that they didn't do that for him, because then he could actually just be his own character without having his defining feature be he is the black man
Right.
of the party. And that's why I say I want anyone else out there who might have an opinion on this to maybe watch it and then have their take, because it's just he's a good character, and it's one of the first few times where I've ever seen someone in a period piece be a certain background, but it never being addressed, but not ignoring it. It's like they just found it like, I would just want him to be himself.
Right.
And you like some. I mean, I like this character too, but you really liked one of the other characters introduced later on in the Party Wagon.
Oh yeah, and I think that's interesting in that it's kind of related a little bit to what you were talking about, not in terms of race, but
You accept what is given to you. Like it's like, oh, is this taboo? And then after a while, you're like, no, it's not.
yeah. So you have these orphans, Billy and Toady, that come in, and Toady is the younger one, Billy is the older one, and you start figuring out pretty quickly that Billy, spoiler alert, is actually a girl in disguise. And
Name's Millie.
they have like this nice little trail of breadcrumbs that lead up to it, and I guess it's obvious if it's something that you're looking out for, but maybe
Yeah.
not so much if you're like maybe a little kid.
Like I think, like when I watched it just before, I figured it out like immediately, and I hadn't watched this movie in over
Yeah. And I
12
mean,
years.
they're
but
both at the age where they're both still young enough that it's pretty androgynous,
Yeah.
in terms of voice and face. So I didn't look at this character and immediately go, oh, that's actually a girl. But then there was a scene where the wagon master was like, oh, let's.
Everyone has to take a bath, including you two
Yeah,
boys.
and they were like, we do our bathing in private. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, now that's interesting. And, a lock of hair fell out of his hat that he kind of tucked back up. So at that point, I was like, oh, okay, orphan boy, quote unquote.
But
However,
the best clue I think I've ever heard in a piece of cinema, I want you to say it because, I mean, you deserve it.
Well, actually, I'm going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
So you have this one scene where Billy runs into Jill, and Jill is like, so, hey, you wouldn't actually be a girl pretending to be a boy, would you? And Billy goes, what?
No,
Kind of
of
denies
course
it,
not.
and then eventually kind of sighs and goes, yeah, it's true. Lets her hair down, and Jill is like, she says,
You can confide in me essentially.
yeah, and Billy goes, you know what? I think I actually prefer this male persona.
And Billy also gave the reason for dressing up as a boy, being that like their whole like it was true that their whole wagon party was abandoned. Whatever happened, they were the only two survivors. And Billy says like I thought that my chances of me and my brother surviving would have been increased if I dressed up as a boy. And I don't remember exactly if they go into specifics of
No,
that,
they
like
didn't.
why he thought that, but you can sort of figure. I mean, like it's kind of vague, but you can like accept it, and it's also coming from a kid. But
Yeah.
maybe that was also I thought maybe that was also a lie, and just being like maybe Millie always wanted to be a boy and saw this as her opportunity.
Yeah, because, now they don't have to worry about fending for themselves. They have, Jill has basically just offered her support, and I don't think Jill would let anything happen to them. It's not a matter of they wouldn't be safe with the group that they were in. So Billy, Millie specifically expresses preference for the male persona, and I thought that was so interesting. And it never, in the end, by the end of the movie, they never revealed it to the rest of the cast, and I thought that was so cool to kind of leave it that way and to keep it with that secret. And
Yeah,
I think one of the pieces that lends itself to my interpretation of Billy as a trans boy would be the wagon master is yelling at the party wagon and like, "Oh, you've caused enough trouble. You guys are on penultimate probation." And Billy is looking out of a wagon and goes, "Penultimate probation? Them rascals was born lucky." And
it's like
it's just
whoa,
it's
nice, nice slip in there. Like whoa,
it's a really silly line, but also I think
it's
it's
kind of revealing
telling.
at the same time,
Yeah.
and like it balances a lot of scenes like that because it's mostly a comedy and there's not many scenes of like heartfelt like aw or whoa, but that's definitely one of them when Billy reveals, oh, I'm actually Millie, but call me Billy, I want to be called Billy. But and then later on the party wagon has to leave the orphans behind to
Yeah.
go search for the treasure by themselves, and they don't want to endanger the kids. And Billy and Toady are kind of upset, but Randall, who Billy confides in Jill that Billy has a crush on Randall but doesn't want to tell anyone, is really heartbroken about this and that they would leave them. And they're like, no, we promise we'll come back. And they're like, but we need you guys. And Randall, is trying to be a good adult. He's like, listen, you gotta be the man of this. You gotta watch out for you and your little brother. And Billy's like, but I'm not a man. Like, and starts crying. And Randall's like, you will be one day. And then they ride off, and that's the last words they say. And they meet up again later. But that kind of like it hit me a little bit. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's unexpected coming from just this.
A 2004 Cartoon Network show.
I love it, but it's a throwaway TV movie. Yeah, and it aired on like a primetime network, Friday night, 7 o'clock family movie. Like, wow. Like, I was not expecting that. And the other thing was that Billy's brother Toady did not have any reservations about this.
Yeah.
And was cool with it, and was never like, if Billy felt uncomfortable, so did Toady, and they both ran away. Like, they were both together.
And
it was
Jill
just
too.
Really, and Jill, of course. But it was just really interesting to see this, like, without like making a big spectacle of a character being something.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, no, this is normal and accepted.
Right.
It was just like, wow, really? Okay, I'm liking this.
Yeah.
And
I was surprising.
And you don't expect that. There's not many, like, I'm really surprised they got away with it.
Yeah.
Considering, like, because there's shows I've seen behind the scenes of other shows, and they try to like slip in such and such, and then people like close the book on it. They're like, no, change it now, or you're getting canceled.
Right.
And you're like, oh man, that's a shame. That character was supposed to be that, or oh, this was supposed to be this. And somehow they got away with having a character say, I prefer to be a boy, call me a boy from now on. They're like, okay.
And I have a
And it
crush
also-
on Randy.
Yeah, and it also wasn't stylized so Billy was ugly or like super like or whatever. Like, it wasn't like a joke that the character wanted to be a boy.
Yeah.
The character was a kid who wanted to be a boy, and it's like, okay, that's really interesting. And I know this has become a very deep conversation for the rest of Party Wagon, but really overall, Party Wagon is, I think, it's a fun show, and there's not much to say about the humor unless you watch it. I think the humor it can range from very subtle to overt, like, okay, this is a clear joke, and then there's some like kind of smart humor thrown in
Yeah.
there, and then just gags and stuff. Like Bumpy gets shot in the foot. He's like, "Oh, I'm dying. I'm going to heaven." And then Lewis Clark Jefferson's like, "Bumpy, you got shot in the foot. It just went through the boot." He's like, "Why am I in such pain then?" And he pulls a cactus out of his boot. He's like, "How long has that been in there?" And early on in the series, Toady and Billy put a cactus in his boot, and then only then. It's like weird to see something like that come full circle.
Yeah, or you had Three-Eyed Jack going over the waterfall with his arm around Randall's neck. And, even though they're falling over a waterfall, he's still taking the time to, like, be whacking Randy over the head with his cane. Just little weird things like that.
Or even like the guy who rides the ferry is like a crazy person who just he's like, this is gonna be okay. That's wrong. Or like they think everyone's all good, and then they're like, no, we lost Three-Eyed Jack. Let us bow our heads and pay our respects to Three-Eyed Jack. He's like, Three-Eyed Jack's not dead. He's over there, drowning in the river. Like it has a very eclectic humor, but it never feels out of place. And a show like Party Wagon is sort of part of the reason that I wanted to do a YouTube discussion channel about cartoons, because of course it's fun to compliment good shows, pay the respect, maybe point out some flaws, that people don't think of, and also just rag on really bad ones. But there are also so many shows out there that people don't remember, be it that, okay, it's just old and it hasn't aged well or whatever, or it aired, or in the case of Party Wagon, it aired
Twice.
once, maybe a couple times, and that was it, and there was nothing left of it. I talk to people nowadays, they do not remember Party Wagon.
I didn't. I never saw it.
And I'm not saying that people should go out and revel in Party Wagon, but it's a good show, and I'm okay with it being forgotten, because that's what it is. But sometimes I wish that it didn't, because it was made by one of my favorite cartoonists, and he worked on a bunch of shows that shaped my childhood and shaped the way I look at life and even my sense of humor. And I really had a lot of fun watching it, and I hope that through this YouTube channel that we can point out some obscure shows that are good, maybe some obscure ones that should remain obscure. Like I found out they made a Gilligan's Island cartoon where they're not stuck on an island, they're stuck on a planet. It's called Gilligan's Planet, and I'm thinking, why? I can't wait to get to that show on our list.
Oh
but
boy.
when you get to a show like Party Wagon, and I'm like, okay, I've only seen this a couple times. How has it aged? Why is it not really remembered? And that's part of the fun for me.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
And that is my biggest thing of any like cartoon.
Yep.
Did I enjoy this? Can I have fun? Can I just sit down and watch it and just relax?
And this is a go for that, I would say. I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected it to, so I would recommend it if you're looking for a couple of giggles.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that about wraps it up for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and if you liked what we talked about, please give us a like. And if you have anything to add or feel that we missed something or we're totally off base with some of the stuff that we said, please leave a comment, because we would love to hear your feedback. And, of course, a subscribe if you are so inclined. We have been Discount Ramblepants.
And remember, I can see my hands. Partner, buckaroo.
Chap.
How do cowboys sign off? I think they shoot a guy, and then they shoot you.